Good morning. In the previous class, I was discussing about different ways of handling the deadlocks, and we have done discussing about deadlock prevention. Here, we try to ensure that one of the necessary conditions for deadlock to occur doesn't hold good. See, what are the necessary conditions for deadlock to occur? The first one is the mutual exclusion. The second one is the hold and wait. Third one is no preemption, and fourth one is the circular wait. Okay. In the next, I had given an introduction to Banker's algorithm in the last class, and this is a deadlock avoidance algorithm. Now let us actually look at the algorithm in today's class and see how it works. Now before I discuss about this algorithm which I have given on the slide, let us quickly recall the data structures that are used by this algorithm that we have already discussed. The first one is the allocation. Okay, allocation is a data structure. Let me write this properly. Okay, so allocation is an n cross m matrix where n represents number of processes running in the system and m represents number of resource types. Max is another data structure. This is also a matrix of order n cross m. Allocation represents what? For each process, how many instances of different types of resources are allocated. And max represents what? Max represents for different processes what is the maximum requirement of different resource types. We will take an example so that will make these concepts very clear. Available is after allocating the resources to the processes, how many instances of different types of resources are available. So this is a vector, this is not a matrix. Okay, that's like this. Suppose there are three types of resources A, B, C, then this available, if it is let's say 3, 2 and 5, it means that after the allocation of some of the instances of these three types of resources, three instances of type A are available, two instances of resource type B are available, and five instances of resource type C are available. That's the meaning. Okay, I hope you understood what is allocation, why it is n cross m matrix, because suppose if there are three processes running in the system, each process how many resources in fact to be specific, how many instances of resource types are allocated currently, and what is max for the completion of the execution of these processes, how many maximum of how many instances of each resource types are required. And available is this, like I told you, after the allocation how many are available. Now what is this need? Now we have allocation, and we also know how many instances, maximum of how many instances of resources are required. Using these two information, we can get need. What is the need of a further need of a process? It is maximum minus allocation. So this need also has to be a n cross m matrix. For example, let's say you have written need of some process I as a vector, something like this. Let's say 1, 0, 1. This means that um, to complete the execution of the process I, one more resource of type A. Here one represents an instance. One more instance of type A is required, and 0 instance of resource type B is required, and 1 instance of resource type C is required for the process I. Okay, so these are the things that we have already discussed in the last class. Let me not rub these things. I will keep them as it is. Now let us try to understand the Banker's algorithm. The Banker's algorithm has got two parts. One is an algorithm which checks whether the given system's state is in safe state or not. Okay, so that is the safety algorithm, and it has got one more part. That algorithm is resource allocation algorithm. The resource allocation algorithm will pretend as if it allocates the resources as per the request made by the process, and passes that system state as input to the safety algorithm. And safety algorithm checks after the allocation of the resources as per the request made by a process, system is going to remain safe or not. If the system state is safe, then the allocation made by the operating system is committed, in the sense it is made permanent. Otherwise, the allocation of resources is postponed or deferred. So that's how the Banker's algorithm works. I hope you have understood. The resource allocation algorithm calls this safety algorithm to check whether the system's state remains safe or not. Now let's try to understand how the safety algorithm works. Okay, so here we take two more data structures, work and finish, and both are vectors, and work is of length m and finish is of length n. So what is m? M is number of resource types. If you take this example, what is the value of m? M becomes 3. If there are 5 processes running in the system, then n becomes 5. Okay, respectively. So initially the work is assigned, or the available is assigned to work. Available is also a vector, like I told you, of length m. So that is copied to data structure work, and finish of I, and I varies from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the number of processes. So I 0 to n minus 1, for all these processes, finish of those processes is made false, which means that none of the processes has completed its execution. So therefore finish of all these processes is made false. Now what is the second step? You will have to look for an I such that finish of that I is equal to false. That means it has not completed its execution, and need of that process I is less than or equal to work. So what have we assigned to work? It is available. If the need of that process is less than or equal to available, then what we do? We go to step 3. Okay. If we don't find such an I, that means, or you start from process 0, and process 0's need is greater than work. So what you have to do? You have to go to step 4. Okay, step 4. That is after completing searching all the processes, you find that need of 0 is greater than, if there are 5 processes, okay, need of 0 is greater than work, a need of 1 is greater than work, and so on, which means what, all of these processes needs some resources which are not available, okay. So here we check, in the step 4 we check that for all I varying from 0 to n minus 1, finish of I should be equal to true. If it is not equal to true, it means that there is some process, or there are processes which are no which are not able to get the resources, and there will not be a safe execution sequence of processes, and this may lead to deadlock. That's the meaning. Yeah, don't worry if you don't get it, because I'll be taking an example and explaining this safety algorithm once again. But if you find an I which meets both these constraints, then what you have to do, work is equal to work plus allocation of I. Please remember, it is allocation of I. So what is that we are trying to do, that whatever we have allocated to that process, resources that we have allocated to that process, is added to work. That means this process is going to execute, so we are going to take back the allocated resources and make finish of that particular process is equal to true, and go back to the step 2. That means if we find that 0 meets these constraints, then we know take back the resources that were allocated to 0 and put it to work, add it to work, and make finish of 0 is equal to true, and go back and see whether we can meet the requirements of 1, and so on. And after all this, we'll come to this step 4. Here if we find that if finish of 0 is equal to true, 1 is equal to true, 2 is equal to true, and 3 is equal to true, then the system is in a safe state. I think you have understood this. Uh, don't worry if you have not understood, I will take an example and explain this once again. Okay. Now that we learned safety algorithm, that safety algorithm is going to be used by resource request algorithm. When a request for resources is made by, let's say, process PI, the following actions are taken. So what is the first action? We ensure that the request that PI is making is less than the need of PI, whatever is needed by, for it is something like this, okay. So your need is 2 apples and you are making a request for 1 apple, which means 1 is less than 2, so apple can be given to you. That's what I am trying to ensure. That is, let's say there are 3 different types of resources in the system, A, B, C, and need of process 0, let's say, is 1 0 0. Okay, so this is the need of and if by chance it asks for resources like this, if its request is this, that means this is greater than the need. So it is like your need is 2 apples and you are asking 3 apples, which is not permitted. The same is true with this case also. So now this processes request, this is something fishy. So operating system raises an error condition, and the process has exceeded its maximum claim and it cannot be granted. So if the request of I is less than or equal to need of I, then we proceed to the next step, and we also check it is not it is not enough if request of I is less than need of I, we should also ensure that whatever is requested by the process I, so many resources are actually available to give it to the process Pi. If that is also met, then we go to step 3. Otherwise, we don't have enough resources to give it to process Pi, so therefore Pi must wait. So in step 3, what we do, the system, or the operating system, pretends as if it meets the requirement of process Pi. What it does is it um, subtracts request of I, which is also a vector, from available. Why? Because we are allocating whatever resources that have been requested by Pi. So many resources will go out from the available vector. And what we have to do to the allocation, the process Pi had some resources. Now since we are granting its new request, we are adding those resources also to the allocation. That means we are granting the resources whatever the process requested for. And once we grant this, and these many resources are to be subtracted from need of I. So it is something like this. Now let us say resource three instances of resource type A were available, and Pi asked for two instances of resource type A. So therefore, how many are available now? It is 3 minus 2, that is 1. So available changes. Allocation, earlier assumed that this Pi had 0 instance of this type A. Now you are giving two instances of resource type A. So therefore, you are going to add this to this. That's what you are doing here, and that becomes your new allocation, that is equal to 2. That becomes your new allocation. That means now Pi is holding two instances of resource type A. What is the next step? Now its need was what? Its need was let's say 2. Okay, and you have allocated now 2. So what is its need? Its need is now 0. So therefore what we do from the earlier need, 2 minus 2 we do, then it becomes 0. Okay, like that we update available vector allocation of I, or to be specific, the matrix allocation matrix, and need of I, or need matrix. All these are temporarily updated, not permanently, and this state of the system is passed as input to the safety algorithm. Okay, now the safety algorithm checks whether it is a safe state or not, safe or not safe. If it returns that it is a safe state, then transaction is completed. That means it is made permanent, else the process has to wait, requesting process has to wait. I hope you understood this resource request algorithm. So why is this called as deadlock avoidance algorithm? We just like that, we don't grant the request made by the processes. We call an algorithm called safety algorithm and check granting of resources requested by the process will take the system to not safe state. If so, then we will make the process to wait without granting the request. If after you pretend as if you have granted the requested resources, if the system does not go to it does not go to not safe state as per the result sent by the safety algorithm, then we make this allocation permanent. Okay, So that is what is avoidance. It is like yeah, in COVID time, what is avoidance? Social distancing, wearing mask, and using sanitizers. These are the precautions that we take to avoid spread of this virus. So similarly here, why it is called as avoidance? We make sure that the allocation of resource will not lead the system to the deadlock state. Okay, we avoid committing this transaction or making this transaction permanent if this transaction leads to transaction. What I mean by transaction, allocation of resources leads to unsafe state. Okay. Okay, let me explain Banker's algorithm with this example. You see here what is allocation, how many number of processes are there? There are 5 processes, P0 to P4. And how many different types of resources are there? A, B, C. So there are 3 types of resources. What is the value of n in this case? N is equal to 5. And what is the value of m? M is equal to 3. So I told you that this available is a vector of length 3. So it has 3 elements, 3, 3, 2. What it indicates, after allocating the resources shown by this matrix or this way, 3 instances of A are left, 3 instances of B are left, and 2 instances of C are left. Okay. Now this is a matrix, n cross m matrix, means that there are n rows because there are n processes, m columns because there are m types of resources. What does this indicate? P0 has got 0 instance of A, 1 instance of B is allocated to P0, and 0 instance of C has been allocated to P0. Like I said, all the processors should a priori announce its maximum requirements of resources. Okay, so that has been done through this matrix. Let's hope that we have captured that as well. That means the process P0 wants maximum of 7 instances of resource type A, 5 instances of maximum of 5 instances of resource type B, and a maximum of 3 instances of resource type C. Okay, so that means any request that P0 is making should not exceed the maximum that it has already claimed, or already that information is present in the max matrix. So using this information, we can now calculate the need. What is the need of P0? P0 has got 0 instance of A allocated, but it needs 7 instances. So how many more it needs? 7 minus 0, maximum 7, and 0 has been allocated to it. So that is the number of instances of resource type A are needed by P0. So similarly, you calculate how many instances of resource type B are required by P0. So how do you calculate that? What is the maximum that it needs? 5. And how many have been allocated? That is 1. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Similarly for C, 3 is the maximum number of instances of resource type C. And how many it needs? 3 minus 0, that is 3. So like that, I have now created the need matrix. So what is the order of the matrix? It is n cross m, where n is number of processes, m is number of resource types. Now we have what? Let me erase whatever I have written. So what are the data structures that we have? We have allocation indicating how many instances of resource types have been allocated to these five processes. We have matrix max. Max is nothing but the processors have made a claim that maximum of these many instances of different resource types are required in this matrix, and after some of the instances of these resource types have been allocated to processors, these are the number of instances of different resource types remaining. That is what is available, and from this we can calculate the need matrix. Need matrix is nothing but max minus allocation, so that gives us the need matrix. After we get this, now what we have to do, we have to check whether the system, first let us understand the safety algorithm that I discussed about. Then let's see how resource allocation actually happens. Okay, I hope you can see these steps. This is step 1, this is step 2, 3, 4, this is step 5, this is 6, and so on. Okay, so let me explain. What is the value of m? M is 3. M indicates what? Number of resource types which are available in the system. N is what? N is 5. It indicates what? Number of processes in the system. Now, initially, as per our safety algorithm, what are we trying to do? Assign available to work. So we are, let me, if possible, let me just go to the previous slide and show you how many resources are available. Now you see available is 332. So therefore I'll start with that. I'll assign 332 to work. This work is another vector which I have taken, whose length will be equal to m. And finish is an array of size n, where n is number of processes. So it can hold 5 elements. Okay, initially you see finish of 0 is false, finish of 1 is false, 2 is false, all are false. That's the initialization, which means that none of the processes has completed its execution. Okay, that's why all the elements of this array are false. Now let's start from 0, process 0, assign 0 to I. Okay, this is a loop. Okay, so initial value of I is taken as 0. Now what is the need of process 0? I think I have to go back and show you the need of process 0. What is the need of process 0? See here, it is 743. That's what I have written here. Okay, I will not come back again. I hope you understood. So that I took need from that need matrix. So it is 743, right? Need of process 0. Now we compare this with the work. Before that, you will have to ensure that finish of 0 should be equal to false. So this constraint is met. Whereas need should be less than or equal to work, but that condition is not met. Okay, so therefore this p naught must wait. It cannot continue its execution because it is not having the system is not having enough resources available to give it to p naught, right? So we proceed, we increase the value of I by 1. That means we check whether we can allocate the resources, available resources, to process P1. What is the need of process P1? It is 1, 2, 2. One instance of type A and two instances of resource type B and two instances of resource type C. Now what we have to do after this, check whether finish of 1 is false. Yes, it is false because all are false according to this. We initialized false to all the elements of the array. So this is false, which means that this process has not been executed. And we check what is its need. Its need is 1 to 2, whether it is less than or equal to work. Yes, it is less than or equal to work. What is our work? 332. So 1 to 2 is less than 332. So therefore we can add this process P1 to the safe sequence. That means it completes its execution. Now what we have to do, assuming that it can complete its execution because its need is less than what is available in the system, what resources are available in the system. So what we do, we claim whatever has been allocated to Pi back and add it to work. Okay, so what was allocated to P1, that is 200, two instances of A, 0 instance of B, and 0 instance of C. So this 200 is added to work. So what happens to work now? It becomes 532. Now we check whether this is our now available resources. Now we check whether we can allocate these resources to some other process. We can do so if a process's need is less than or equal to work. Okay, so before that we make this finish of 1 because we added 1 P1 to safe sequence. We make this true. Okay, let us go to the next step, that is we go take this process P2, make I is equal to 2. Okay, what is the need of P2? It is 600, 6 instances of resource type A, 0 instances of B, and 0 instances of C. Okay, so whether that is less than or equal to work? No, because it needs 6 instances of A, but we only have 5, so it is greater. This process has to wait. We cannot add that to the safe sequence. Okay, and we move on. Now we check whether P3 can be added to the safe sequence. What is its need? It is 0, 1, 1. I hope you are following me. 0, 1, 1 is less than work. What is the value of work now? 5, 3, 2, which means that we have 5 instances of A, 3 instances of B, and 2 instances of C. So this condition is also met, and finish of 3 is also false because it has not completed its execution. Both the conditions are met, therefore we can add this P3 to safe sequence, and we can claim whatever resources have been allocated to this process P3. When we do that, what is that claim process? Add the allocation of this 3 to work. So that is the allocation of 3 is 211. When we add it to work, it becomes 743. Okay, and before we proceed, we make now P3 has been put into safe sequence, so therefore we make false of 3 is equal to true. Now we have put two processes to the safe sequence, therefore you are seeing two truths in this array. Now we proceed and go to the next process, that is P4, and check whether this can be added to the safe sequence. What is its need? 431. So that is obviously less than work, so this condition is met, and finish of 4 is equal to false. That condition is also met, so therefore P4 can be put in the safe sequence. Okay, now when once we put it into the safe sequence, we can claim whatever resources that we had allocated to P4. When we do that, we work becomes 745, and now there will be 3 truths in this vector or array. Okay, so that is we have now added P4 also to the safe sequence. P1 was there, P3 was there, so we have added P4. There will be 3 truths. Now next we will go to the next this one. So we are left with what we have: processes P0, P1, okay, P2, and P3, and P4, 5 processes, right? Now P1 we have added to the safe sequence, P3 we have added to the safe sequence, P4 we have added to the sequence. So we come in the round robin fashion. We again come to this first and P0. Now we look at the work. If work is greater than need or need is less than work, we can allocate the resources to process P0. Now let's see what is the value of work. It is 745, right? What is the need of P0? It is 743. So obviously need of P0 is less than work, and the finish of 0 is false because it has not completed its execution. Both the constraints are met. We can now add this P0 to safe sequence. Okay, so similarly if we go on, now we can add, we have now enough number of, and we claim the resources which have been allocated to P0 and add it to the work. So now we have 755 resources, that is 7 instances of A, 5 instances of B, and 5 instances of C. And because we have added P0 to safe sequence, we make a finish of 0 is equal to true. Now we have to check, there is only one process which is left now, that is this P2. We have to check whether we can meet its requirement. Of course its requirement can be met. Okay, so therefore we add that P2 to the safe sequence and we get this work. This indicates what? In the system there are 10 instances of A, 5 instances of B, and 7 instances of C. And the safe sequence means what? Now we can complete the execution of processes in this order. P1 first because its need can be met, and then we can execute P3, its need can be met, then P4, then P0, and P2. So there is a safe sequence. So what will you conclude? That this is a safe state. I hope you understood. So you will have to have allocation matrix, n cross m matrix, max matrix, n cross m max matrix, and available vector. Using that you will calculate the need, then apply the safety algorithm which I discussed. I will show the safety algorithm once again. Okay. Where am I? Yeah, I'll clear off all this safety algorithm once again, and we check. Okay, need of any process is less than or equal to work, and finish of that process is equal to false. If both the constraints are met, then we simply assume that this process execution can be completed, and we put it to the safe sequence, and then we go ahead to step 3. I hope you've understood this safety algorithm. Now next let us go to the resource allocation algorithm, which actually makes use of this safety algorithm to check whether the system is in safe state or not. Okay, by pretending as if it has granted the request of a process. Okay, now let's see for the previous example. Now process P1 makes a new request, okay, for one additional instance of resource type A and 2 instances of resource type C. So that means the request of process 1 looks like this, 102, right? It looks like this. Now as per our request allocation algorithm, this algorithm pretends as if this request is granted. So before that it checks whether the request made by process P1 is less than its need and it is less than the available number of resources. When both the conditions are met, in this case see 102 is less than 122 and 102 is less than 332. Okay, So therefore it is going to update the data structures available, allocation and need. Why? Because see, now it has made the request for these resource types. So many are going to be allocated to process P1, so therefore we have to remove so many from available. So available is updated and add so many to the allocation of P1. We had allocated some resources. Now since we are granting this request, whatever it has requested, those many resources are all also added to allocation, and its need would obviously come down. It becomes need 1 minus request 1. That will be the new value of need. So that is what I have shown here. Okay, so the allocation of P1 is updated. Whatever it had requested is added to this, and its need has come down. That is the need, its request, whatever it had requested, that is subtracted or removed from the need. And now we had how many? We had 332, because we have granted 102 resources to the process P1. So what is available now? Two instances of A you subtracted, and three instances of B, and zero instances of C. That is our new available. Now what we have to do? We have to now send this state. You can call this as a systems state. You can send this state to the safety algorithm as input and check whether this state is safe. If this state is safe, then we can make this allocation permanent. Okay, let's see whether we have a safe sequence or not. So I will not explain all the steps again, but what you have to understand here is, now you see wherever I have put this right mark, so that process's uh, need is less than the work, and its finish of that process is false, so that can be added to the safe sequence. So therefore this is P1. What is the value of I? It is 1. So first P1 can be added, then where I have put arrow tick here, so then P3 could be added to the safe sequence, and I have put tick here, so P4 after that could be added to the safe sequence, and then I have put tick here, so therefore P0 after this could be added to the safe sequence, and P2, yeah, P2 can be added to the safe. So there exists a safe sequence of execution of these processes. That means after granting, all the processes could complete their execution. So that's a safe state. So this is what is the information passed back to the request allocation algorithm. So request allocation algorithm makes all the changes that it has done permanent. I hope you have understood. This is how the banker's algorithm works. Banker's algorithm ensures that after the resources are allocated to a process, the system is going to continue to stay in the safe state. Only then it grants the request. Otherwise, the process has to wait. So this is what is deadlock avoidance. I hope this is very clear. Now what we will be discussing is, suppose you assume that the operating system does not use deadlock prevention mechanism that we discussed, or this deadlock avoidance algorithm. So then what would happen? You are ignoring, in fact instead of saying ignoring, you are allowing the deadlock to occur. So in that case, what is that you are expected to do? If you allow deadlock to occur, then you should have a means of detecting the deadlock, right? Detecting the deadlock, and after you detect the deadlock, you should try to recover from the deadlock and allow the processes to continue their execution. Okay, so those are the 2 points that I have put here. One is you should have, if you are not using deadlock prevention or deadlock avoidance mechanisms, then you should have an algorithm to examine the state of the system to determine whether a deadlock has occurred. And if you detect a deadlock in the system, then you should have another algorithm which could take you out of the, in fact, take the system out of the deadlock, which is known as recovery from the deadlock. So we will discuss about, there are mechanisms to detect the deadlock, and there are mechanisms to come out of the deadlock, recover from the deadlock. We will discuss about those mechanisms by taking one by one. First, let me talk about the deadlock detection. Okay, the first method used to detect the deadlock in a system is with the help of a data structure called wait for graph. So here we are making an assumption that single instance of each resource type is found in the system. Okay, that's the assumption. Now this wait for graph is a variant of resource allocation graph that we had already discussed. I hope you remember that. A RAG, a directed graph or resource allocation graph, looks like this. Okay, it would look like this. Now let's see how we can convert this resource allocation graph into wait for graph and use that for detecting the deadlock. I will discuss about the detection algorithm in the next slide. In this slide, let me explain how this resource allocation graph is converted into wait for graph. Now you see, you look at this. Okay, here you have two edges. One is from P1 to R1, and the other one is from R1 again to P2. So this means what? This means that the P1 is requesting for resource R1. R1 is being held by P2. Okay, if that is the case, you can replace these two edges by one single edge connecting two processes. So here you will only have processes as nodes. If there is an edge from one process to another process, it means that the process P1 is waiting for a resource which is being held by P2. Okay, that is the meaning of this one. So let us, keeping this in mind, let us try to convert this resource allocation graph into wait for graph. How many processes are there? This is process P1. Let me write, they become nodes in our wait for graph. P2, I hope you are able to see whatever I am writing. This one, it is, hope this is legible. Then there is this process P5, and there is one more process, that is P4. Okay, I have written all the processes which is there in the system. So these processes becomes nodes. Now you see, P1 is waiting for this R1, but R1 is held by P2. So therefore you can put an edge from P1 to P2, like I told you here, explained here. And P2, you see here, P2 is waiting for a resource held by P4. So therefore you can put an edge from P2 to P4. And P2 is waiting for a resource held by P3. So therefore you can put an edge from P2 to P3. And P3 is waiting for a resource held by P4. So therefore you can put an edge from P3 to P4. And similarly, you can put an edge from P4 to P1 because P4 is waiting for a resource held by P1. Are we done? We have one more edge left. So P2 is waiting for a resource held by P5. So therefore you can put an edge from P2 to P5. So this is what is known as wait for graph. Okay, so this is what is known as wait for graph. Let me rub these things so that it looks little neat. Okay, let me rub whatever I've written here. Okay, looks a little neat. Okay, now this is what is the wait for graph version of resource allocation graph. Now we use this data structure to find if there are any cycles or if there is any cycle in the wait for graph. See, here you can observe there is one cycle, and here, do you see any cycle here? No, there is a edge from P2 to P4. So there is one cycle here. There is one cycle here, which means that these processes P1, P2 and P4, these are the processes which are creating a cycle, and these processes are in a deadlock state, and the system is in a deadlock state, right? So this is how we detect whether there is a deadlock in the system or not. So let me explain that algorithm. I have written that algorithm in the next slide. I hope I have 5 minutes more. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is the deadlock detection algorithm. So we have to maintain wait for graph. In the wait for graph, as you have seen, nodes represents processes, and if there is an edge from Pi to Pj, it means that Pi is waiting for a resource which is being held by Pj. So you have to maintain this data structure and periodically invoke this algorithm which searches for a cycle in the graph. You can use DFS. How DFS helps us to find the circle in the graph is beyond the scope of this syllabus. If you want, you can refer to other resources to understand how DFS can be used to find the cycle in the wait for graph. Okay, uh, if there is a cycle, okay, after you run the algorithm, if you find a cycle, then there exists a deadlock. This is the way to detect the deadlock. Okay, so let me stop here. I will take an example of system having multiple instances of resource types, and see what algorithm could be used to detect the deadlock in that kind of a scenario. Thank you very much.